Bomba! Stu estaria vivo em Pânico 7 e ele pode voltar em Pânico 8. O próprio Kevin Williamson confirma um final alternativo de Pânico 7 que mudaria tudo. Além disso, ele confirma uma cena de perseguição deletada, quais partes do roteiro que ele escreveu, e ainda temos uma crise do filme que não ficou muito contente de como o roteiro original tratou a sua personagem. As polêmicas de Pânico 7 continuam mesmo depois da estreia do filme.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Se vocês ainda não me conhecem, prazer, meu nome é Breno Becalho, sejam bem-vindos ao canal de terror Quarta Parede, onde eu trago curiosidades, notícias, críticas, tretas, casos reais, nostalgia e muito mais sobre filmes e séries de terror. Vamos começar então com Kevin Williamson, que revelou que havia uma cena de perseguição cortada do filme por conta do tempo e do orçamento. Olha o que ele disse. Havia uma sequência inteira que eu tive que cortar por conta do tempo e do orçamento. Era enorme e vai estar em Pânico 8. Na verdade, não sei. Vou dar um jeito de usá-la. Tomara que eles usem mesmo. Amamos uma cena de perseguição. Quanto mais, melhor. E olha o que o Kevin disse sobre o roteiro do filme, em que Guy Busick escreveu ele praticamente todo e Kevin Williamson focou mais em Sidney e Gale.
Wrote the first couple of drafts, and I focused most on the set pieces and the relationships between our characters. And I, primarily Sidney and Gale, Sidney and her daughter, and Sidney and her husband, all the sort of the personal connections and all of sort of the emotionalization. I really sort of took my hand through that part of it. And, I really wanted to sort of tell an emotional story between mother and daughter and just sort of really show where Sidney's at 30 years later. And so I paid attention to that part of the script.
Ou seja, as melhores partes do filme foram o Kevin quem escreveu. Só acho que ele poderia ter dado a Gale algo mais para fazer, mas enfim. E agora vamos para as partes polêmicas e com spoilers. Recentemente, em uma entrevista, Kevin revela sobre o final alternativo de Pânico 7, onde Stu estaria vivo. Primeiro, ele disse que toda a ideia de IA foi do roteirista Guy Busick. Queríamos ter o melhor dos dois mundos, gostaria de poder levar o crédito por isso, não leve, Kevin. Mas Guy Busick já tinha isso no roteiro, ele escreveu toda a parte da IA. Eu entendi. Mas enfim, agora vamos falar sobre Stu e o final alternativo de Pânico 7.
We had a little concern about, will the audience be disappointed if Stu isn't really alive? Or will they, accept the AI of it all? And so we filmed a little extra piece at the end that sort of revealed that Stu was actually alive in a big sort of surprise twist. And we chose not to go with it. It felt too confusing. We showed it to a test audience and they were confused by it. They're like, wait, so he's not alive, but he is alive? But why would, it just became a question mark. And so we felt it was cleaner just to keep that out.
Ou seja, originalmente, a ideia era realmente do Stu estar vivo e em vez de uma inteligência artificial, seria ele mesmo o ligando, o que daria um final em aberto para um oitavo filme e ele realmente voltar com força total como um grande vilão. Mas, sinceramente, eu prefiro ele morto e que os Ghostfaces desse filme tivessem alguma conexão com ele. A Jessica, por exemplo, podia ser irmã dele. Mas, sobre isso, a atriz que não estava satisfeita com o roteiro do filme era a Anna Camp, que numa entrevista para o Tommy Didário, ela comenta que teve que lutar para ter mais cenas e diálogos no filme para justamente desenvolverem mais o seu personagem. Eita, vamos ver o que ela diz na íntegra.
Would you agree with the statement that your character represented, in some way, fans that were angry Neve Campbell, Sidney didn't come back for the last movie because they formed this deep attachment to her and felt like they were owed that. And when she didn't, your character kind of snapped. Is that one analysis?
I think that could be. Yeah, definitely. I did not think of it that way at all, but I think now that you're saying it out loud, it could be. I played it just as who Jessica was as a person, and kind of like as an actor, I have to fill like what it means for the person to be, obsessed with Sidney Prescott. But I think if like narratively, if you're looking at it that way, you could definitely say that about the character. But I played it as just a person who was like absolutely obsessed. And I even played it as if I was in love with her. And it didn't quite like the maybe the lines weren't there, but I had to come into that scene with it so emotionally filled with things that I had to create on my own, because there was really nothing there in the script for me to draw on, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that scene had to be so, I had to come up with backstory. I had to come up with why I loved her, why I was obsessed with her. And this is all on my own in my hotel room, because the scenes beforehand didn't do anything, didn't inform the character at all, really. And I even remember reading the script. They made me go into an office building in Beverly Hills to read it in a closed room, like by myself. And I remember one of the producers came out and he just said, I kind of want to know what you think. And there were less scenes that you saw in the movie in the script draft. And I remember saying, so I'm going to put my producer hat on here. I'm not an actor who wants more to do. As a producer, you need to add something, because right now this character is just coming in and being a mom, and then I didn't show up until the very last scene. And so I said, I think she needs one more scene. And the scene that they ended up adding was just the scene with Courtney in front of the house.
Wow.
And it wasn't necessarily what I had pictured, right? Like I was hoping for some sort of scene that gave a little more backstory for my character, a little more depth, a little more coloring as to like how she felt about her son, how she felt about anything, truly, really. But, at the end of the day, like I couldn't keep pressing them to change the script because I wasn't a producer on the film. I was an actor that they hired. And so at that point, I just had to start justifying things and filling things in on my own in order to make that scene resonate and feel like the scene it needed to feel. They did listen, which was really nice. And I also added the line in the end about me not liking my son. So that wasn't in the script when I say he was too much like his father. He had to go. He had to die. I didn't mention my son at all in the draft that I read in that scene. And I was like, we have to address the fact that my son Lucas is now dead. Like, I have to have a line about it. So they listened to me there too, which was great. But I think I learned an even more valuable lesson is to like, I have to keep fighting, for these scenes that are ultimately going to make the movie better as a whole in the end.
Yeah.
But I tried my best.
Eu admiro demais ela por ter lutado, viu? Por seu personagem e ela ter entendido que era importante sim a Jessica ter mais participação e ela queria que tivesse mais tempo de tela para desenvolver mais o personagem, porque essa é uma das grandes problemáticas do filme, o terceiro ato, com a falta de desenvolvimento dos Ghostfaces. E no roteiro original, ela ia aparecer na cena da cafeteria e depois na revelação. Como assim, gente? Como eles pensaram que isso seria uma boa ideia? A Anna Camp, ela critica que o roteiro não deu nada para ela poder trabalhar. Ela teve que criar toda uma história sozinha na sua cabeça sobre o personagem para construí-lo e assim conseguir interpretá-lo da melhor maneira possível. É realmente um desperdício de uma grande atriz que podia ter entregado muito mais do que ela entregou no filme. E isso, mais uma vez, é culpa de Guy Busick, porque o Kevin até comenta sobre a motivação dos Ghostfaces, explicando, mas eu já expliquei para vocês em outro vídeo, mas vamos ver.
So it's really hard to keep that motive coming. But, one of the things that I think, Guy kind of said to me early on is because in this franchise, it's always someone that you know, but what if it's not? What if it's not someone that you know? We had 3 killers in this film, and 2 of them she didn't know. And one of them she knew as who was just not who she said she was, and was lying to her. And so I thought that was an interesting idea in the sense that, if the first film is someone has taken their love of scary movies one step too far, and this movie is more about someone has taken their love of Sidney Prescott one step too far. And in the way that 4 was about, her cousin trying to get to become her, and 5 was about toxic fandom. And in a way, this one is about that psycho hero worship, and not just the franchise. That's why it's different from the other movies. It's not about the Stab franchise. This is about Sidney Prescott. This is about her book Out of Darkness. This is what she became as a result of Woodsboro. And the killer has latched onto that element of her. And then when she went away to have a family and sort of disappeared from the limelight, that was just not okay with the killer. The killer wanted her back. And if she can't have her back, she's got her daughter. So I think that was sort of her psycho motive, but it's hard. It was a swing. We weren't sure, it's just that the first movie was about, her mother, her boyfriend was the killer. In the second film, it was the killer's mother. And then in the third film, it was her half brother. In the fourth film, it was her cousin. And so it's like, how many times can she be related to the killer? I wanted to try to do something different with the motive and to see if we could step outside of the Woodsboro a realm of things, because even 5 and 6, we had Sam, who was the illegitimate daughter of Billy Loomis, and was still connected in a family way. And so this was the one we were trying to go, what happens if this killer is focused on who Sidney became, not who Sidney was? And that's where we sort of tried to expand on the motive.
Então a ideia disso tudo foi do Guy Busick. Então eu tô começando a perceber quem é o grande problema desse filme agora. Inclusive, quando o Guy foi questionado o motivo que a Jill não apareceu no final, ele simplesmente disse que foi porque ela levou um tiro na cabeça e não podia voltar. Quê? Primeiro, a Jill não levou um tiro na cabeça. Segundo, Roman e a Sra. Loomis levaram e voltaram. Terceiro, era tudo IA. Então, o que ele disse não faz sentido. Mas o que é mais estranho nessa história toda é o site em que trouxeram a matéria que ele deu a entrevista, porque simplesmente mudou o que ele disse. Olha só a matéria original dele falando do tiro na cabeça e como a matéria tá agora com ele falando do tiro no peito. Então, 2 opções. Ou o roteirista errou mesmo e, para evitar hate nele, o jornalista mudou o que ele disse na matéria, ou talvez o jornalista errou na digitação quando escreveu essa matéria. Mas acho muito estranho simplesmente terem mudado isso depois de toda a polêmica que já estava rodando nas redes sociais do que o Guy disse sobre a Jill. Então acho sinceramente que deve ser a primeira opção. O jornalista viu todo o hate que estava recebendo e resolveu mudar na matéria dele, como se o Guy tivesse dito desde o princípio que a Jill levou um tiro no peito e não na cabeça. Mas enfim, se o roteirista ele não sabe o que aconteceu antes na franquia, realmente é um problema ele escrever um novo filme sem saber exatamente do passado todo que veio antes. Não é estranho?
É claro.
E, sinceramente, se tivermos um Pânico 8, tomara que ele não volte como roteirista. E sobre isso, o Kevin Williamson confirma que também não volta, nem como diretor, nem como roteirista. Olha o que ele disse.
I have some ideas of, I think, where it could go, but I'm anxious to see what another storyteller could do with it. And I'm excited that I hope that we get the chance to do it. It's nice to be part of the Scream family. That doesn't mean I always have to be front and center. I don't always have to write or direct. There other people can take the reins, and I'm excited to see what other storytellers come up with.
Agora é arrumar bons roteiristas e outros diretores que entendam a franquia para dar continuidade. Radio Silence? Mas será que os fãs tão extremistas vão aceitar um novo time criativo? Porque olha o hate desnecessário que os 5 e os 6 levam. É complicado, porque muitos reclamam da fórmula saturada da franquia e quando finalmente mudam, reclamam que queria o básico de volta. Realmente é difícil de agradar. Então eu desejo muita boa sorte para quem for pegar a franquia daqui em diante, porque vai precisar, viu? Mas é isso. Qual a opinião de vocês sobre essas polêmicas de Pânico 7? Vocês queriam um Stu vivo? Que produção conturbada, né, galera? Inclusive, eu vou fazer um vídeo completo para vocês sobre a linha do tempo das polêmicas desse filme que, ó, vem de anos, viu? Enquanto isso, assistam aqui o vídeo sobre o final explicado de Pânico 7. Deixem um like de vocês, se inscrevam no canal e até os próximos vídeos.